Guess what, guys? I have something really special. A loot box. Let's see what's inside. Nothing. Okay, let's grab another one. Let's see what's inside. Nothing. Okay, let's try another one. Maybe this time I'm gonna have a piece of awesome gear. An empty roll of toilet paper. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the whole loot box thing. It's, people are talking about it. It's going around. Well, loot boxes are going around. They're being shared. So what's my opinion about loot boxes in video games? Okay, well, obviously, the way some of the loot boxes are configured and everything, it does constitute of a form of gambling. The issue that I have is what the decision would be if, because more and more countries, and probably by the time I upload this, I might have another update to add to the end of this video or whatever, more countries are actually looking into it. They are investigating to see if it constitutes, according to their laws, gambling. And so if more countries embark on this and decide that it's gambling, I mean, I don't have a problem with it being determined as gambling. I don't have a problem with developers saying, okay, it's gambling. But then you have Germany saying, well, you'll have to rate it R. And then the publishers are like, well, we're going to lose our younger audience. And then there's Quebec, which, if Quebec jumps on the bandwagon, the developers either have to go through a very elaborate process or make their games void in Quebec. Void in Quebec. Like, imagine No SWTOR being allowed to be played in Quebec. Imagine Battlefront 2 not being sold in Quebec. I trust that the developers won't want to lose that clientele, and they're going to do the smart thing. The thing with the void in Quebec thing is because of the Régie des quoi? Régie des jeux et d'alcool and this and that and blah blah. It's like a super long thing. And when you have, so if you have prizes, gambling or things like that, giveaways, you have to send a certain percentage of the total value of the, what the winner would get, or what's available to the Régie. If it's above $2,000, like, there's a whole elaborate process. If it's under $2,000, there's like some things less to be done. And then, so then with loot boxes, how do you quantify monetarily the value of potential gear or stuff in loot boxes? In the case of Battlefront 2, it's under $2,000 per player, but they would still have to fill out a form, send a certain percentage to the Régie. They would still have to have everyone playing the game who would buy a loot box perform a mathematical question. It's required by the Régie, and there's a long list of things. There's a long list. Like, I've looked at it. It's really complicated. So the video game, developers, if they do the smart thing, they're going to remove these types of loot boxes. On va s'entendre, But then if they don't do that, if they don't remove those types of loot boxes, and Quebec jumps on the bandwagon and says, this is gambling, this is what you have to do, or you can't sell in Quebec, well, like, a lot of Quebecers are going to be unhappy, so maybe the Régie is going to have to rethink its laws and regulations and stuff, but that's going to take a long process, and they have a bunch of other priorities. And so those games might for a time not be available in the whole of the province of Quebec. And, And then they would, like in the case of with Germany, they would have to, lose money because they're not going to be selling to kids anymore. The games are going to have to be for like legal age and up. When some of their video games, their loot boxes, but they're geared towards like young teens and stuff. So hopefully they just remove those types of loot boxes, and simplify things for themselves and for gamers and for everyone else. Because the last thing I would want as a Canadian citizen living in the province of Quebec would be that games like that can't be sold anymore in Quebec. I would like, what? Like, seriously? See? So yeah. So those are my thoughts on it. Like, I don't play Battlefront 2, so I'm not angry about it. I'm not upset. I think the thing with the Battlefront 2 was a little ridiculous. I mean, they pushed it a little too far. Like, come on, BioWare. EA exploited a little too... EA pushed a little too far there. I really sympathize with people playing the game who are, like, angry about the situation. Even when they reduce the cost, then they reduce the amount of like, rewards that people receive to be able to purchase the loot boxes. Like, that's ridiculous. So, I mean, in SWTOR, there aren't, like, that many loot boxes, and they're not really important. I've never played with the loot boxes, and you get way better gear not with the loot boxes, and I don't consider this in-game stuff from SWTOR as gambling, the way that it's made, the way that it's presented. But I see how, in the case of a bunch of other games, it could be considered gambling. So, that's my stance. I live in Quebec. Everything is void in Quebec because of the complications with the régie. Are they going to keep the loot boxes and just made it void in Quebec, or follow the instructions of the régie, or are they going to remove loot boxes? And hopefully they remove loot boxes, because it's just pushing things too far. Like, come on. We want, instead of focusing on loot boxes and stuff, let's just focus on story and gameplay and the actual things that matter to gamers. So, yeah. Anyway, what do you guys think about the loot boxes and the whole movement investigating if it's gambling and the effects that might have? Hopefully it has good effects on the gaming industry, as a whole, and hopefully those types of games don't become void in Quebec. Everything is void in Quebec. This summer, it was cold. Like, summer was void in Quebec this summer. Like, seriously. Anyway, we're on the Canadian Shield here. It's like the most solid tectonic plate in the entire world. Maybe that's why. We're like, but we're still not protected from loot boxes. The Canadian Shield can't protect us from the loot boxes. Damn. I'm gonna have to send my complaints to Rocky and Bullwinkle. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? And I don't know, I'm like playing with my barrette. It's sticking to my thumb. I've been playing with it too much. I've got a magnetic thumb, apparently. All right, I'll see you guys soon. I was gonna say Masaranas. What the heck? Masaranas. Be sure to check out some of my other stuff. Gaming, drinks, parodies, and some random silly stuff. You can also join in on the fun on Patreon for some exclusive content. Thanks for tuning in.